Yo, what's happening, everybody? Getting this thing rolling here as we head towards the All-Star break. It's pretty close. We're going to get a little breather, aren't we? That'll be nice. That'll be nice. Oh, I'm tired. I am real tired, everybody. I am real tired, everybody. Trying to get ready. We're going to Yosemite this weekend. Taking the kids to see the snow, visiting some old pals, meeting at a sizable Airbnb somewhere up there, and getting the hell out of Dodge for a couple of days. Should be a lot of fun. I hope you guys have good plans for this coming couple-day hiatus from basketball. But here's the plan today. Ooh, whoa, lots of comments before the show. What did I do? I lit a fire under your butts today, didn't I? Sheesh. Oh, my. Well, hi. I guess I better get flying into this stuff here. All right, here's what we're going to do. New plan. I got two things I want to do pre-show. Number one, if you're here and watching, you better have clicked like and got a hair coming off my hat. You better have clicked like and subscribed to the our YouTube page, youtube.com/sportsethos. I see 7 likes so far. Now 9. Ooh, there you go. You guys are right on it today. You guys are on top of it. He's fired up for that last day before the All-Star break, which is surprising because there isn't a whole lot going on. Boo-ba-doo-boo-ba-doo-boo. What do we got? Is it 3 games today? Yep, 3 games. All right. I got wife texting me about our little one's 3rd birthday in a month. Everything happens. You can't separate. You can't compartmentalize once you got a bunch of kids. 2 being a bunch, by the way. That's baloney. We got plenty of stuff to go around. What I am going to do here is thing number 1. I appreciate you guys all throwing questions in the chat room. I might actually start to do all the questions I see in like the first, we've been live for 3.5 minutes here. I've been talking for 2 of them. I'm going to try to answer every question in the chat room before the recorded show. If you guys get it in like the first 5 minutes, I'm just going to hammer it out. That'll be another impetus to get questions in fast and early. I think people are going to enjoy that. I think that'll get more of you guys watching at the front end of the show. The other thing is, I want your guys' input on this, and I'll try to ask again in the middle of the podcast or a show or whatever you want to call it these days. We're playing this game on Twitter over the last couple of days. I'm sure some of you have seen it, where I'm asking you guys to guess the final fantasy line of fun players, guys that we've been watching. So we did Mark Williams a couple of times. We did Matisse Thybulle for 1 game. I'm not going to ask you to guess like all 5 or 6 statistical categories. I'll usually pick 2 or 3. I want you guys to throw in the chat room who you want to be that player tonight. A couple suggestions, if I may. Slow-mo, if he plays. Gafford for Washington. If you want to go CP3, get a little old man in the mix. Alex Caruso for Chicago. A couple of possibilities. Caruso might be an interesting one because I'd probably ask you guys to do points, assists, and steals. My back is all locked up today. I got the heating pack on it, but it ain't doing any good today. Oh, Dano needs some rest. Dano needs to stretch. Anyway, throw in the chat room who you guys want me to do that game with today, because I want somebody to get 2 people yesterday got 2 of the 3 categories right, so I gave them a smaller, kind of a runner-up prize. If someone gets all 3 one of these days, I'm unloading a huge Ethos subscription on them. So play with us. Play with me. All right, let's do a few questions here before the show starts. Oh, no, my face. My precious face. There I am. What are your thoughts on trading away a top 25 player to receive a top 50 player because of your team's needs? At what point is there too much consensus value lost between player A and player B? There is no wrong amount at this time of year on that sort of thing. You need particular stats, you go get them. I think you could probably get someone who gives you those stats and is a little bit better. There's usually someone in a 25-player range that fits your mold. But no, there's nothing wrong with that. Will we get a Big Three podcast this season? No, our good buddies, our love bugs over at the ITL no longer cover basketball. So can't happen anymore. You can tell Bogman I miss him. I can tell Bogman I miss him, but it's probably funnier coming from you guys. Trey Jones, DeAnthony Melton, Steven Adams, all available in my league. Which one should I scoop is the next half of this question that's in a different post. I prefer Trey Jones. I know he's been dealing with this foot thing, but he is the most reliable of the three. Steven Adams is a punt free throw guy, and then Melton has been kind of hit or miss, although he was a little better yesterday, so he falls in the middle for me. I am 100% making playoffs. Nice. I don't recognize your screen name, so if you're new, welcome. I have Curry sitting in the IR. He has a great schedule for playoffs, but I doubt he plays all the games. In an ESPN points league, what do I do with Curry? Should I hold him? Well, if you traded him now, you wouldn't get much. So I think Curry plays. He's been out for what, about 2 weeks now? I think he's probably back by about March 10th. So do with that whatever you will. It's about 3.5 weeks from now, I think, is when he makes his return. They'll bring him along a little bit slowly, but they can't afford to bring him along that slowly because the Dubs are in that battle for play-in stuff. If you want to trade him for someone who's definitely healthy and playing, you should aim for top 30 or better. By the way, I needed soda today. I'm very sleepy. I need a sugar fix. I can't do caffeine. Really upsets this area. You don't think the Trey injury is serious? It's hard to know. He came back for what, one game, then they shut him back down again. They've been pretty cryptic, and teams that are tanking do tend to do that, but I still, until I hear something truly bad about it, I'm going to assume that he's back in a couple of weeks. And plus, we got this nice layoff here coming up. So, if we don't get any kind of report on him coming out of the All-Star break, then I'll start to get a little more worried. That I admit. If anyone can help, I would really appreciate it. Oh, that's cool. That's for anybody in the chat room. So hit him up if you want. By the way, I feel like I haven't seen a question from you before either. So welcome. Please like and subscribe. Specifically subscribe. It's pretty cool, actually. I know it's little. We're still kind of a little fish on YouTube. We're a much bigger fish in the Twitter and just general fantasy space than we are here on YouTube. But it is very cool to log in each morning and see the number of subscribers go up by like 5 to 10 every day. And then like 150 or whatever it was on trade deadline day. We'll just keep trying to build. But, every time you guys watch and subscribe, it does make it a little bit easier to get the next one. You'll notice, folks like us, we get 5 to 10 subscribers a day. Once you have like 20,000, then you probably get more like 30 or 40 a day because you're just in more feeds. So the faster we get there, the better. Yes or no? Should a trade be vetoed? Side A gets Giannis, Jimmy Butler, Isaiah Stewart, Precious Achua. Side B gets Jalen Brunson, Cat, Jakob, and MPJ. No, you can't veto it. First of all, anybody getting Giannis immediately loses free throws. Jalen Brunson's been awesome. Cat being hurt is the thing that makes me a little bit kind of meh about this. But Jakob Poeltl is way better than Isaiah Stewart. MPJ is way better than Precious Achua. Whether or not you agree that one side is better than the other, both sides are very much giving up useful to very good fantasy players. And in such a case, you cannot veto that type of trade. This is very clearly not collusion. One side feels they're getting the better deal. The other side feels they're getting the better deal. And just because we disagree with one of the two of them, the only way you could veto a trade like this is if one team's like dead last by 40 games and obviously stopped paying attention until 24 hours ago. Then it's like, okay, why are you tuning back in now? But otherwise, no, absolutely no veto on that. I swear to God, this cold that I had 2 weeks ago has just obliterated my sinuses. I keep telling my family, I'm going to die from this thing, and you guys are going to call me crazy, but I'll be laughing when I'm dead. Question number 2, if that's okay. What's your rest of season outlook for DeAndre Ayton? He won't continue in his top 5 run over the past 2 weeks, but can he sustain top 30 value with Kevin Durant in town? Probably top 50 feels more apt, but he'll be fine. He's going to be decent enough. What to do with Zion, someone heading into the playoffs? You might have to drop him, honestly, unless you can find a taker in your league that's willing to take the risk. I mean, I don't know if you have a league chat or something like that. You could throw in it. It's just like, hey, anybody willing to take the risk on Zion? And maybe one team's like, I'll take the risk. And if you can snatch up like a top 80 kind of guy, I would do it. But you might have to drop. Probably wait until the second to last day before your playoffs start, but you might have to drop. Would you trade Ben Simmons for Delon Wright? Head-to-head 8-cat 12-teamer. I don't know that either of these guys belongs on a 12-team roster rest of season, but yes, I would rather have Delon Wright than Ben Simmons right now. Westbrook in talks with several teams. How do you think his rest of season playoff outlook will be? The Bulls is the only place I could see him having fantasy value in any format. Clippers won't play him enough. Heat won't play him enough. I can't imagine. I mean, if the Heat did, it would only be a matter of 2 or 3 games before Jimmy Butler just smacked him down. The only place where he would like get it and go would be Chicago, because that place is such a wreck right now that you're like, all right, well, you know what? Just do something. Do anything at all. He might actually be good for the Bulls because at least he plays hard. And I get the feeling that not everybody on that team plays hard every game. Bulls have a real motivational issue. Mr. C is very right. Don't forget to hit that like button. And please do subscribe. Speaking of the All-Star break, what will the pod be discussing during the All-Star break? That's a great question, Mark. Tomorrow we're going to recap these 3 games and talk a little bit about betting odds over the weekend. I don't think that show tomorrow is going to be on YouTube because we're trying to get out of town in the morning. So that one will be on the recorded side only, most likely, unless I do it tonight. But kids could be blasting in and out of the video. It could be a real weird one. You guys want to get weird with me? Maybe we do a YouTube video late tonight, like right before the kids go to bed. But more than likely, it'll just be on the recorded side. We'll talk 3-point contest, dunk contest, betting odds, the game itself a little bit. And then next week, we'll get into playoff stuff a little bit. We'll get into some mid-season lessons learned, a little of that. And then I think I want to go through the Dan Besbris old man squad, because at this point, like, not everything is set in stone. You can project pretty well. Any takes on the Anthony Simons news? The fact that he may or may not be back by the other side of the All-Star break, I don't know that there's anybody that I'm racing out to grab. I mentioned on yesterday's show, I thought Cam Reddish probably picks up a few of his shots, but they also might have Jeremy Grant back, and then he would take like almost all of them. So you kind of have to see if anybody else, with him being, if everybody was out, if Grant was still out and Justice Winslow is still out and Simons is out, and then you start to look at guys like Reddish who need to shoot. You need somebody out there to go take some shots. Shaedon Sharpe might make some noise. Thibault will probably get you 4 or 5 defensive stats. But if guys start to come back, and they might have Winslow on the other side of the break, and they probably have Grant on the other side of the break, to me, those guys probably step in and do more of the stuff. Buddy, you don't have to post it 3 times. I'll get to it. I promise. It's in the chat room. Russ going to the Clippers means he's a drop. I dropped him way back, but yes, on the Clippers, he would be a drop. Yes, is Hard a must start every game, even when he's off the bench? Yes, he's been awesome for the Knicks so far. And to me, it's only a matter of time before he's playing 30 minutes every day. Only have one keeper, Dan. Whose future do you think is brighter, Walker Kessler or Mark Williams? Wow. I'm going to go Walker Kessler. And it's only because we have a little bit of a better body of work. I think it's also very clear that the Jazz are building around Kessler. It's not 100% clear that the Hornets are going to put everything into Mark Williams yet. I love them both. It's an awesome choice to have. It's like, oh, we've been an embarrassment of riches. I do wonder Dan, I bet you could take Mark Williams and his hype train right now and trade him for like a top 60, 70 range guy that's not really keeper style. Then you get to keep Walker Kessler, and maybe you turn Williams into something that's perhaps a bit more reliable the rest of this year, because he's still going to have some little rookie up bumps along the way. Even though, as I've said before, I'm softening my stance on rookie big men. What's your thought on J-Dub and the Lunch Lady? Love them both. Both must roster. Must roster. Honestly, they're both rosterable 10-teamers. So definitely 12. Is Slow-Mo a must start, even if he's off the bench and or minute cap? If we know Slow-Mo is going to play 25-ish minutes or more, I'm starting him. Once he's... It's hard, though, because we kind of need to know before the game starts what he's going to get to do. So I'm less bullish on Slow-Mo than I am on Josh Hart. And I love Slow-Mo's fantasy game, but the fact that they're trying to keep his back safe does make me nervous. And the fact that they have Mike Conley to kind of steer the boat, that's what Slow-Mo is doing for this team, steering the boat. Not to say he's expendable. They're still a hell of a lot better when he's out there and playing, but I kind of need to see him get up to like 25, 26 minutes reliably before I drop him in there. You guys just keep putting questions in the damn chat room here. I want to get to the start of the show, but I said I was going to answer them also. Killian Hayes worth a hold. I have a playoff spot secured. I mean, he's a low-end point guard. We've seen enough of him this year to know that he's going to level off in like the 120 range. If you need assists, if you need steals on wonky percentages, have at it. Do you think Cam Johnson can get to 75-80 range in a points league? 9-cat, I'm pretty sure he can. Points league is a little more iffy because percentages are part of the appeal with him. He scores efficiently. So I'm going to say no, but barely no. What's the reason of Russ being droppable if on the Clippers / Heat? And what about Bulls? So you may want to scroll back a tiny bit. Guys, you're putting questions in. I got to get to the show. Clippers aren't going to give him that much responsibility. Heat, I don't think would give him that much responsibility. Bulls, I think they might actually. And then the Wizards, it's not Scott Brooks there anymore. But they're weird enough to try it. So those two teams are the ones that I would hold. In a keeper league, I can keep 3. How would you rank Şengün, Jalen Williams, Walker Kessler, Mark Williams, Scotty Barnes, and James Wiseman? Well, Wiseman is way at the bottom of the board, so just wipe him out. If you're just talking straight 9-cat value for next season, I would have Scotty Barnes at the top, followed by Walker Kessler, then Şengün, then Mark Williams, then Jalen, and then way the hell back behind them is Wiseman. Oh, hey, Jonathan, congrats on your contest win the other day. Didn't we just get you a subscription of some kind? You guys all should pay attention. We do a lot of giveaways these days. With the Spurs tanking and Malachi Branham emerging a bit, do you think Trey Jones can regain some value, or is this trending toward a drop? Yeah, I would hold on Trey Jones. He's better than Malachi Branham at running point. Branham is more of a score first. They don't really have a point guard right now, outside of Devontae Graham, who is also kind of a score first guard. And you could see how disjointed they got when they didn't have an orchestrator on the floor, even against a bad team like Charlotte. Things just sort of like spiraled for them. And it's why Zach Collins is averaging like whatever it is, 4 or 5 assists a game lately. He's like kind of running point out of the center spot. All right, we're starting the show. I don't know if we're going to do a Q&A at the end because I just did like 30 questions at the front end. But let me step aside for 5 seconds, get myself another sip of drink, turn on my recording software, and then we'll get this bad boy on the road. You will speak no evil of the great Kelly Olynyk. Such is the news of the day as we head into the final day of games before the All-Star break. And damn it, we need it. Because we've been grinding, man. We've been grinding. It's been fun, though. I've had more fun this fantasy season than I think in like the last 2 or 3 years. And maybe being out of the COVID, I know it still is out there, so I don't want you guys to take this the wrong way. We've all been impacted by it. We're all still trying desperately to dodge it so we don't have to keep our kids home from school for 2 weeks and then also be sick for 2 weeks alongside them. But from just like an NBA feel standpoint, you haven't seen the massive total of games missed. You haven't seen the wave of it run through the league. Things just feel a little bit more normal. I do wonder also if, as we get towards the end of the season, if we start to see that the average number of games played this year was actually just a tiny bit higher than the last couple. You're still getting plenty of injuries that are knocking guys out for a month and a half, and most of the top of the board has dealt with something. Anthony Davis, long absence. KD, long absence. Steph, 2 long absences. Dame had an absence early. Kyrie had all of his weird stuff. JJJ started the year late. Jimmy Butler always misses his games. Harden missed a month. So everybody's had their thing. Except for Halliburton missed a bunch of ball games in there. He got back quicker than expected, but only Jason Tatum really has just played among the top guys. And then Jokic has been kind of close. They're giving him some days off here for hammy things. But it just, I don't know. And maybe it's because a lot of our suggestions here on the show this year have gone better. So I feel less, I feel like what I feel responsible for is generally more of a positive sensation. But either way, it's just kind of nice. But regardless, quick hits on Twitter, 120 of those in a row, whatever we're at right now, and the podcast streak continues. I do still need a couple days off just from the intense day-to-day sort of like picking over the carcass here of whatever's happening in the fantasy world. I'm sure you guys do too, even though we will still have shows over the All-Star break. We're not skipping those. But welcome one and all, live viewers, recorded viewers, however you're taking in today's show. Welcome to Fantasy NBA Today. I am your host, Dan Besbris. You can find me on Twitter at, Dan Besbris. It's not at Dan Besbris. It's just at Dan Besbris. DANBESBRIS. For the live YouTube viewers, you can see it right there on your screen. For everybody listening, hopefully you guys can find it in the podcast description. That's an easy place to track me down. Or just spell it from what I just said. But I do hope I'll see you over there because we are very busy on social. And it's frankly the only way to win anything more than the least competitive of fantasy basketball leagues. But let's just dive right on in. We got a big box score set to go through from yesterday. What is it? 10-game Wednesday, I think is what it was. But anyway, let's dive in. Not a whole lot from Chicago and Indy. I don't want to spend more than a minute or two on this ball game. Alex Caruso is doubtful for the second half of their back-to-back, which is a damn shame because when DeMar DeRozan was out last time, we know he stepped up in a big way. He had some foul stuff going on in this ball game, but he still got his 4 defensive stats and a 3-pointer. No big complaints. I think I was hoping for maybe more like 1 or 2 extra rebounds or 1 or 2 extra assists, but it's hard to complain when somebody gets you 4 defensive stats, almost regardless of whatever else they do. My biggest complaint is that we're not going to get to milk him for 2 games in a row. Kobe White exploded for 25 points on 12 shots off the bench. I can't imagine he's going to be this hot every ball game. But if DeMar and Caruso are out tonight, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself, this is more the look-ahead part of the proceedings, you've got to figure that Ayo Dosunmu picks up a lot of the slack. And then perhaps you do get another decent game out of Kobe White. More score-y than the other stuff, typically, for White, but might just be barely good enough to get you over the hump. Aaron Nesmith had 21 points on 12 shots on the other side. Again, it's about running hot and cold. The Pacers tried starting TJ McConnell, and it went very poorly. They brought him back off the bench in the second half, and Rick Carlisle and his tinkering, he sort of realized quickly that that was a bad idea. Moving Tyrese Haliburton off of point was kind of dumb. Yeah, anywho. I'm not picking up Nesmith. I would need to see this about 4 games in a row before I believed it was something that could stick. Charlotte, San Antonio. I talked a little bit about the Spurs during the pre-show over on the live YouTube feed, but I think some of this does bear repeating on the podcast. That team badly needs a point guard, and that's Trey Jones, but he's been out a little bit lately. Really kind of mostly out. He tried to come back. Seemed like maybe he was playing through a little bit of pain, so they shut him back down. Not a big fan of how that went. They've been very quiet on how long they expect Trey to be out. I'm hoping we get some sort of news towards the tail end of the All-Star break, so around this time next week, I guess. In the meantime, the Spurs have a whole bunch of guys that profile much better as points league or head-to-head punt build options. Jeremy Sohan, he's a popcorn stats kind of guy where the percentages aren't great. Malachi Branham, popcorn stats where the percentages, I know he had a better shooting game here, but the percentages typically are not that great. Keldon Johnson, frankly, has been more in that build, although, if you take the whole body of work together, it's been a little bit more reliable than the other guys. Devontae Graham is a punt field goal guy that also, again, kind of profiles better on the points league side, although he only played 22 minutes in this ball game. And then you're left with basically, 1.5. If we count Keldon Johnson as kind of like a half for this thing, you're left with 1.5 category league plays on the Spurs. And the other one, the full 1, corresponds to Zach Collins, who's kind of running the offense out of the center spot while Trey Jones is out. He's making a lot of passes out of the high post. Hence the big assist numbers lately. So let's keep riding Zach Collins. He's looked outstanding since they moved Jakob Poeltl. I don't think that the super high assist numbers last rest of season once they get a little more reliable point guard play back, but we don't know how long Trey's going to be out. So, enjoy the extra assists while you're getting them. And then Collins should be fine rest of season regardless. You're just seeing a little bit of extra upside here, kind of sliced into the mix due to various absences for that team. Devin Vassell actually being another one where his eventual return, I'm going to assume that it does happen, likely takes a big chunk out of Sohan and Branham, if I had to guess. And Devontae Graham. Over on the Charlotte side, Terry Rozier sat this one out. It seemed like maybe they just wanted to give him a break going into the All-Star break. They said something about a sprained arm or wrist. I don't know. I'll believe it if it's a thing a week from now. I think Charlotte is off for 9 days. They have one of the longer All-Star breaks. If anybody's out when they come back, we got another lovely glimpse of what full starters minutes Dennis Smith Jr. can do, but I don't think he's going to be this level of fill-in on the other side of the All-Star break. There's a chance we get Terry Rozier back. There's even a chance you see Kelly Oubre. So, no, I don't think I would add Dennis Smith Jr. using a roster move, but if you have a kind of like a dead slot on the Roto side and you could treat him as basically an injured player, which I know is nuts because he's very much a healthy player, where you only just drop him in there if the guys in front of him are still out 9 days from now. Again, is that too much work? Maybe, possibly, but that's the way you have to treat that. Mark Williams, 12 and 10 with 4 blocks. Hard to complain about that line. Nick Richards had 6 and 9 with 5 blocks, although it did seem like he got away with maybe 2 goaltends in this ball game. The refs were treating this game about as seriously as Charlotte and San Antonio were. They let a lot of weird stuff go. In any event, you can't pick up Nick Richards in only 18 minutes. He's not a massive shot blocker generally. The Spurs just had a bunch of guys. Keita Bates-Diop was generally the guy who was getting rejected. The San Antonio, they're just not very good. And so you get these guys bungling their way towards the rim, and then big men are going to block them. Charlotte had 12 blocks in the ball game. That's a lot, by the way. Gordon Hayward started the game 6 out of 6 from the field, and then he missed a bunch of free throws and his last 4 shots. I still think he's generally trending in a better direction. From the 200 range earlier in the year, he's probably going to be more like, between 100 and 130 or 40 now, which might play in some head-to-head spots. Just, again, understanding that you're not going to get any defensive stats out of him in general. The turnovers have been weirdly high. The free throw has been weirdly low. It's a lot to swallow with Gordon. Well. Philly over Cleveland. There's never really anything to look at on the Cavaliers side. It sounds like they're going to buy out Kevin Love. That's probably the most fantasy relevant story you've got for the Cavs these days. Where does he end up? Probably nowhere that matters. On the Philly side, we got 34 minutes out of DeAnthony Melton. You guys may recall, I hope you recall, if you've been paying close attention to the pod, that I said I was going to give him exactly 2 more games to get his act together. Well, he got his act together in 1. So that's going to buy him, I think every time he has a good ball game, I'm going to look at him and say, okay, you basically get like 3 more. Because you got to be doing this more than once every 3 or 4 games. But if it does trend that way, then great. This happened because he was playing better. Tyrese Maxey was okay, but not great. Jalen McDaniels wasn't particularly good. So Melton got the bump. I am still genuinely concerned that the fact that Maxey, Jalen McDaniels, Niang, all these guys are kind of breathing down Melton's neck now, that there just really isn't the same margin for error where, when Maxey was out, even if Melton was having a bad ball game, he got minutes. Now, he needs a backcourt player to be not good or hurt for him to get that full starter's workload. I still think he probably ends up being a drop, but I don't know that for sure, and that's why I'm giving him a little bit more time. Knicks blew out the Hawks. Atlanta's, well, I don't know. We don't need to get into the reality side of it. John Collins left this ballgame partway. I think he got hit in the head. I still think he's a hold. Now that he's no longer worried about trade stuff, he's a hold. But as a team, the Hawks they need a reboot. They got blown out. You can kind of throw this box score out. I wouldn't make any big moves based on it. And then over on the Knicks side, I think it's a matter of time before Josh Hart is playing 30-plus minutes per ball game, but he's doing enough even without it right now. So see it through. Isaiah Hartenstein had a better ball game. Hartenstein. Jericho Sims was worse, but again, I don't think either of those guys is consistent enough to warrant a long-time roster spot. I think we can move along. This game really didn't have a whole lot going on in it. Brooklyn riding 45 from Mikal Bridges. A huge career night for Mikal. Beat the Miami Heat, the scuffling Heat again. 116-105. Not that anybody was going to drop Mikal Bridges, but it is cool to see him explode like that because I think there is a fear, and I have a little bit of the fear with Bridges, that he won't be able to keep up the efficiency when he doesn't have Chris Paul and Devin Booker creating the open spaces for him. And that still could happen. One gigantic ball game doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to, but it is cool to see. Cam Johnson, very much a hold. Nicholas Claxton, very much a hold. I know that he's been a little quieter going to the All-Star break. The player that I wanted to point out, and we talked about him on not yesterday's show, I think it was the day before, I think it was Tuesday's pod, is Cam Thomas. And everybody was asking, should I drop? And I said, give this thing a little bit longer because Brooklyn needs offense. Look, Mikal Bridges is not going to go for 45 on 24 shots every ball game. Cam Johnson's pretty good offensively, but he's not a creator for himself. Spencer Dinwiddie can create a little bit. And Cam Thomas can create. And to me, it just feels like there are going to be a lot of games where the Nets go stagnant on offense and turn to Cam Thomas, not Johnson, to go get some buckets. So head-to-head in points leagues, for sure, you got to hold on to Cam Thomas to see how this whole thing shakes out. Roto, I get it. You're basically just stashing at this point to see if he can carve out a mid-20s minutes role, because I do think there's going to be kind of a hot hand thing that goes on, but when he is the hot hand, you saw how hot he can get. He's not going to get anywhere near the value he had when he was throwing up 40 burgers, but he's also, to me, not an obvious drop. Not yet, at least. The Heat had a couple of relatively safe streams with no Tyler Hero, no Kyle Lowry. Gabe Vincent was a very easy stream there. He was one that I had in as many lineups as I could. Max Strus was one that I was kind of coin flippy about because he doesn't do a whole lot besides hit 3-pointers, and, that kind of carried through in this ball game. So he's a 3-point stream. And now with Duncan Robinson back, it makes it harder, I think, to stream any of those shooters like Strus. Whereas with Vincent, at least, he's kind of filling in as the point guard, even if the Heat as a team only had 19 assists yesterday. So we'll see what this team looks like coming out of the All-Star break. Tyler Hero was doubtful for each of these 2 last games he missed. What does that mean for him a week from now? I really don't know. I didn't like this Boston-Detroit game for a number of reasons. Number one reason is that Boston, like all of their guys, suddenly got ruled in. Derek White was doubtful, and then he went to probable. Jason Tatum went from out to playing. Marcus Smart was just mysteriously removed from the injury report and got 29 minutes his first game back. And by the way, a good one. He had 6 steals. So all of these guys that we had kind of prepped ourselves to play, like a Sam Hauser or a Grant Williams or whatever, it just sort of didn't matter. Boston, you jerks. You can't be just ruling 3 guys in that were all expected to be out. Blew up any chance of using sort of the low playing time guys on a back-to-back. Dang. The other thing I didn't like is that James Wiseman took minutes away from Jalen Duren. Those 2 guys split the center minutes almost right down the pipe yesterday. Although I do think if this game wasn't a shellacking, we probably would have seen more Duren down the stretch. We also saw Duren kind of re-injure his ankle a little bit. He wasn't moving that great. I think that was in the second quarter, and then kind of tried to play through it. You're not dropping Duren. You're not adding Wiseman after one ball game like this. To me, I don't think Wiseman gets 24 minutes most games, at least if they're competitive, but maybe I'm wrong on that front. And even with 24 minutes, you're not looking at him outside of a points league because fantasy-wise, he's a mess. Horrible foul shooter. The turnovers are typically kind of high, although they didn't have any in this ball game, at least for what he does. He can score a little bit. He can rebound a little bit. And then once in a blue moon, he'll kind of fall into a block. But overall, so many 9-cat holes for Wiseman. And Duren is the future there. So I got to believe that they're not going to muck this up. Or at least give them enough time to prove to me they're not going to muck it up. Killian Hayes, low-end point guard for the 800th time on this podcast. I don't know why I have to keep repeating myself on that one, but people keep asking the same question over and over. Jaden Ivey, slowly improving. Still hurts you in free throw percent, which is actually a reason that I did trade him away in one of my leagues. I can't deal with the free throw thing anymore. And then Isaiah Stewart, apologies for my still exploding sinuses. I may never recover from this thing. We're like 16 days in, and I still can't shake the last lingering effects. Isaiah Stewart, 26 minutes in a blowout. He probably would have seen a little bit more time late also. And he's been better. I am worried about what Wiseman's going to do to him, to Duren, more than I was a day and a half ago, but still not enough to move off my positions. OKC beat Houston by almost 40 points. Oh, Rockets. The Rockets are, hands down, the most difficult team in the NBA to watch. It should be no surprise that they also have the fewest wins of anybody in the NBA. But they've earned it. They've earned it. The Spurs have leaned hard into the tank now, but I don't know. It feels like the Spurs are competitive for like 2.5 to 3 quarters in a lot of their ball games. And for the Rockets, it's just hard to watch. Not only are they bad, but they play poorly. I really don't like it. I mean, I try to watch some Rocket games just to see if anything's going to shake loose there, but nothing ever does. So what are we even doing? It was nice to see Jabari Smith Jr. have a little bit of a more efficient ball game. I guess that's something. Jalen Green left this one early with a groin injury. We have no idea the severity of it because, again, team heading into the All-Star break, they're always going to pull the plug on guys a little bit quicker. Just say, you know what, like, whatever, let's not push this thing, especially on a tanking team. If Jalen Green misses time, it's not clear that any one player is going to just get all of it. I think you'll see more Jabari Smith Jr., which is great for head-to-head and points leagues where you need to sort of rack up counting stats. Josh Christopher picked up some bonus minutes off the bench. He was kind of like the direct, it's a little bit more of a one-to-one fill-in for Jalen Green. I would have hoped that they would have moved a bunch of guys down the board to get a little more Tari Eason on the map, but it didn't really happen that way either. Eason, to me, is a drop. KJ Martin, you're seeing the other side. We knew that the sort of lava hot run was going to run out at some point, and then, like, what does he do when that happens? And this is the answer. He gives you one of the worst fantasy lines of anybody that played yesterday. So, and that was why I said he was more of a head-to-head points league kind of guy. Because of those weird holes in a fantasy game. It makes it hard to play a 9-cat guy when they're only, like, kind of good at a couple of stuff and then also bad at a few things. Apologies. Oh, the Rockets are a tough beast. Alperen Sengun, he's been outside the top 100 the last 3 weeks after that insane heater that started against, thank you very much, Thomas Bryant and the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, this is the thing. Like, we are, as a collective, a little overreactive. And so when Sengun got going, then there was this sort of almost like across the entire fantasy landscape, this desire to anoint him as a top 20 guy. But you could look at the numbers and you could see what was out of whack. The field goal percent was way too high on super high volume. I mean, he's not going to be a 65% field goal guy when he's also running the offense. He might be in the mid-50s. I'm okay with that assessment. But he was also averaging like near a triple-double and almost like 3 to 4 defensive stats per ball game. It was way above what he had done. And we all want, because he's young, it makes it a little bit easier to say, oh, this is the new iteration of player X. And we can do this with almost any young player in the NBA. When the reality is, players make typically kind of incremental improvements in what they do. And over the course of a season, there's an ebb and a flow, a sine wave of player productivity. Players get hot, players get cold. The hope is that over the course of the year, the best fit line is up, trending up by a little bit. And I think for him, it has in general. Sengun's best fit line is trending up by little bits. But is he a top 25 guy? Is he a second rounder rest of season? No. From 3 weeks of being a second rounder. Is he a top 140 guy? No. From 3 weeks of being a top 140 guy. The reality is that he falls somewhere in between. Probably somewhere between 50 and 80. So right now, if someone sees him falling and they're like, oh no, these god-awful Rockets, Sengun's been a wreck, things are falling apart, could you pry him away for, I don't know, like a Spencer Dinwiddie around 80 type? Probably not. But if you have someone on your team that's a little buzzy, that's ranked like, I don't know, somewhere between 75 and 100, see if you can go get him. I think it's worth a try. Why not, right? Why not? For the Thunder, they got something out of everybody. When you put up a $133 in a blowout and everybody gets to play 18 to 26 minutes, you're going to get a bunch of different guys that do fantasy stuff. Jalen Williams had 16 rebounds and a couple of steals in 25 minutes. He's a watch list guy, but he's not an ad. Dario Saric had a pretty good line, but he played only 14 minutes, so no. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl played only 18 minutes, so no. Josh Giddey is going to do, I think, a little bit less as this team gets fully healthy. We still haven't seen Alexei Pokusevski coming back. It's hard, but for now, Shea, obviously, first rounder. Jalen Williams is a start, and then probably Giddey as well. I would say yes to Giddey as well, but that's as far as I go. Memphis beat Utah 117-111. Colin Sexton left this game 4 minutes in. That's a huge bummer because he was one of our big 3 trade deadline winner pickups. Let's hope he's ready to go by the other side of the All-Star break. I think it might actually even take him a tiny bit longer to get back. But in the meantime, the guy that picked up a lot of the Colin Sexton run actually was Juan Toscano-Anderson, but Taylor Horton-Tucker also added about another 7 or 8 minutes to his ledger. THT goes from being a points league and head-to-head punt build ad to an all formats ad, as long as Colin Sexton is out, because he is now basically the other guard runner on this thing besides Jordan Clarkson. Instead of being the third guard that runs the team, he's now number 2. And he's more of a pass-first guard than Clarkson is. So the assists are basically now guaranteed for THT. Again, this is as long as Sexton is out. And you should go and check your wire. He probably got picked up in a lot of spots because people love points and assists, and he was doing that even when his role was a little bit more limited. But now he steps into a guaranteed spot where the usage is probably now finally going to be high enough to kind of counterweight the fact that both of his percentages are trash. He's a great points league option and a great punt some percentage option. But I do think that now the playing time and the usage is going to be so high that it'll be good enough to overcome that stuff, at least as long as Sexton's on the shelf. Also, no Lauri Markkanen in this ball game, so I wouldn't read too much into the various wings getting more playing time. Ochai, I'm going to muck up that last name, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Really promising young basketball player. I believe it's Abaji. He had 17 points, but not a whole lot else, so you're not adding there. Markkanen will be back. As a Laker fan, I'm quietly rooting for the Jazz to lose, but as a Kelly Olynyk fan, I am very loudly rooting for the Jazz to win because Olynyk had to run a little more point with Colin Sexton out. Someone on Twitter was like, yeah, he did all this because Markkanen was on the shelf. Yes, he scored 28 points because Markkanen was on the shelf. I'm not going to argue with you on that one. Because he's not going to take 16 shots most ball games. But guess what? Larry played in their last ball game, and Kelly had 18 points in that one also. And 10 rebounds. The assists are going to be up after the Mike Conley trade. The rebounds are going to be up after the Jared Vanderbilt move. And the general having to do stuff is going to be up for Olynyk just because they don't have that many guys left. And lo and behold, over the last week, Kelly Olynyk is inside the top 30. He's shooting over his head in that stretch, but he's also low in defensive stats over that stretch. So are we about to get a Kelly Olynyk Houston Rockets run here to finish out the NBA regular season? Probably not. He was a second rounder, but I think Kelly Olynyk could go top 50 the rest of the way, and I'd call it a 50-50 shot. He's inside the top 50, and I'm basically saying it's a 100% chance he's inside the top 80 the rest of the way. So he's like a 7th rounder or better, basically lock, and I have him in a ton of places. I think 50% of all of the leagues that I'm in, I have Kelly Olynyk, which shouldn't surprise anybody because you guys know I have a bungalow on Olynyk Island. And I intend to enjoy it. Hey, Brandon Clark got a spot start yesterday. We didn't know this was happening until like a half an hour before the ball game began. And that's a huge bummer because when Clark starts, I starts Clark. Damn it all to hell. I thought they'd go Tillman against the giant Walker Kessler, but they went Clark to just try to run him out of the building. And that would have been good to know. Steven Adams sounds like he might be back on the other side of the All-Star break, so unfortunately we can't act on the Brandon Clark spot start. And all I can do is look longingly at his fantasy line and think, oh, what if? Dallas went into Denver. They gave Kyrie a day off. I think they said his back was sore, but I think it's because nobody wants to fly into Denver and then play. And they lost. This game was actually not as close as the final score would indicate, and the playing time, I think, is a good indicator of that. I don't know why Luka played 35 minutes. I guess they thought they could wage like a 19-point comeback in the last 10 minutes. They didn't. But Luka was big Luka with no Kyrie around. So there's that. And then Josh Green. Christian Wood is also notable. He's in the 20s in minutes. I think that's where he sits. I think you're going to get more of like a top 75 to 100 range Christian Wood. And he was another example of someone that was a sell high when he was going insane. You guys, we've done this long enough to know certain things don't last. You want to know the reason that Christian Wood isn't going 35 minutes every ball game? It's because the rest of the team is getting healthy and they don't need his offense as much when Kyrie and Luka, and Kyrie didn't play this ball game, but when those guys are around, they don't need Wood to score as much. They rely a little bit more on the defense of other centers. I do think that Wood probably gets up into like the 24, 25 range when all is said and done, but they're actually kind of liking what Dwight Powell brings with those two ball-dominant starters. So there's the rub with Josh Green. He doesn't do a whole lot besides hit three-pointers. I know his playing time is big. I still think that on the head-to-head side, he probably profiles as kind of like the end of your team, I'll let him go safe play. But as I've said all week long, I don't think he's a roto play rest of season. Denver's bringing in Reggie Jackson to play some point guard. That's going to screw up the Bruce Brown stream. Because when Jamal Murray sits, you probably see Reggie start instead of Bruce Brown now. And suddenly now it's everybody else where he takes their place. Just something to keep in mind. I do think the Reggie Jackson signing impacts Bruce Brown negatively. Otherwise, not a whole lot to take away from this ball game. Nuggets won again. Nikola Jokic had a pretty boring triple-double and once again shot over 50%. It's crazy. Okay. So are the Lakers good now? I know, it's one ball game, so we're not going to get too carried away here. That would be a dumb thing to do. But the Lakers starters in particular looked really good. I honestly can't remember the last time the Lakers won the start of the first and the third quarters. That never happens. I feel like I need to attach a disclaimer because the Russell Westbrook fans are so mad anytime he gets blamed for what happened to the Lakers. And I feel like Rob Pelinka, in all of his grotesque weirdness, said it pretty well when he was like, look, you can't put it on Russ because we made that trade to bring in a player that we thought was superstar level, and we sent out all of our like NBA average role player talent to slightly above average to get him. So on the front end, the Lakers sent out a bunch of guys that were really good fits and on decent contracts to get one player who wasn't a good fit on an albatross of a contract. So it shouldn't be that surprising. Like, I love what Jared Vanderbilt did for the Lakers yesterday. He's not a fantasy ad because you can see it. There's just sort of not enough there for him. I did like the 27.5 minutes. He's a watch list guy. Vanderbilt's a watch list guy. But he was out there to go stop Brandon Ingram. And effectively, he did. Ingram had 25 points, but it took him 21 shots to get there. D'Angelo Russell, loved what he did yesterday. Malik Beasley, he was decent. Not great, but decent. And I'm going to say something a little bit dumb and simple when you think about how nuanced all of this stuff really does need to be. But the Lakers could have brought in almost any three average or slightly above average NBA role players for Russ, and it would have made them better. Because what the Lakers truly lacked, forget defense and spacing and all that very obvious stuff that they lacked. These guys are a good fit. Yes, that helps. But what the Lakers really lacked was actual NBA level players. Where when LeBron when out of a ball game, the whole thing didn't just completely explode, just coming apart at the seams because the guys that were out there without LeBron couldn't carry a team at all. And now those guys get pushed back into a second unit. Dennis Schroeder, 20 minutes yesterday. That's what he should be doing. I love Austin Reeves. Low 20s in minutes, that's probably where he should be. On days when he's playing a little better, give him a little bit more. Lonnie Walker barely played because he can shoot a little bit, but he can't play any defense. Rui Hachimura, decent, should be in a second unit to get you some boards and some scoring and exploit mismatches. Troy Brown, second unit. I mean, Troy Brown was barely playing on teams prior to this year in LA. So it's not meant as a slight on Russ. But Russ was not only a bad fit, but his contract didn't allow the Lakers to get 3 role players and push all their veteran minimum guys down towards the end of the bench where those guys belong. I mean, you could equally blame it on those guys for having to play a bigger role. So yes, this trade made the Lakers a lot better in a number of different ways, and there's a lot of blame to go around, but the simple answer is Russ was a horrible fit on a gigantic contract. These guys are better fits on less gigantic contracts. I expect the Lakers to be pretty formidable the rest of the way. Not to mention the fact the Lakers have a tough couple games right out of the All-Star break, but then the last month of the season, basically like March through the last day, they have one of the easiest schedules in the NBA. AD, D'Angelo, LeBron obviously belong on fantasy teams. Vanderbilt is the other one that's a maybe right now. 27.5 minutes typically is enough for him. He was getting pushed around a little by Jonas Valanciunas on the glass, and he was chasing Ingram the whole ball game, so he couldn't do his usual dominating the rebounds type of shtick. But I'll tell you what, if the Lakers' plan is to give Vanderbilt 27 minutes per ball game, that's actually enough for him to have fantasy value. So keep a really close watch on him. I don't think you need to add him after a quiet ball game. I don't think anybody's racing to do so. But look, who the hell do the Lakers play coming out of the break? 27-32. Yuck. They host the Warriors a week from today, the 23rd. I'm sure they're hoping that Steph is not back for that ball game. You know, Draymond's going to be tough. They don't really have an Ingram for Vanderbilt to chase around, but maybe they put him on Andrew Wiggins or something like that. I'll say this. If Vanderbilt plays 13 or more minutes in the first half of that game, a week from today, I probably add him at halftime. And then as far as the Pelicans go, Trey Murphy was just god-awful in this game, so he got yanked quickly. Hold. He's been really good outside of this one. Josh Richardson got ejected, although he was actually on his way to a decent ball game again. So watch list for Richardson, hold for Trey Murphy, hold on Herb Jones. He finally looks healthy. No Larry Nance. So remember, like 3 days ago, I was saying if you get a game where Nance isn't playing, that's where you can drop JV into your lineup for better than top 150 value. Well, it happened much more quickly than I expected. Mid-show reminder to my live YouTube audience. You know what? Actually, I can do this. Screw it. I can do this one with the recorded audience, too. Just want to take a moment here as we're pivoting over to the kind of what to watch for on the short Thursday card. To remind everybody, if you're listening on a recorded side, please come join us live on YouTube. Again, I don't know if we're going to have one tomorrow, so maybe that's not the best day to do this promo, but I'm going to do it anyway, damn it. Most days, we are doing this around 9 a.m. Pacific time. So come join us for those. We'd love to have you. And if you're already watching on YouTube, or frankly, screw it, even if you're not already watching on YouTube, please remember to subscribe. It's youtube.com/sportsethos. And today, I actually answered like 30 questions before the show even started. You want access to your buddy Dan Vespris yelling at you through a screen? That's the way to do it. youtube.com/sportsethos. If you're watching live right now, please remember to click that like button, and subscribing should be a hell of a lot easier because you're already there. Again, a reminder to find me on Twitter at Dan Vespris. And now that the internet has acquiesced, Milwaukee at Chicago tonight. We already talked about the Bulls and on back-to-back here. Possible stream of a Kobe White, possible stream of an Ayo Dosunmu. Milwaukee, sounds like Pat Connaughton is out. I believe Bobby Portis is still out. I honestly don't know who picks up that playing time. I don't think I would venture really any farther in with the Bucks. Chris Middleton, I would expect him to get up around 26 minutes if this is a competitive ball game. And every minute you add to Middleton, the other guys just do a tiny bit less. So we'll see. Washington at Minnesota. This is actually a really important game for me. I want to see how many minutes Daniel Gafford gets if he's not in foul trouble and Kyle Kuzma is playing. That's critically important to me to find out what we can expect from Gafford going forward. Kind of the same story for Denny Avdia, although he wasn't in foul trouble and he didn't get many minutes in the last one. And it's part of the reason that I was a little bit nervous about him. You guys heard me. I was kind of hemmed and hawed on Avdia. Almost got talked into it full bore, but I kept hemming and hawing. And it worked out because we dodged that last ball game. Minnesota, I'd love to know how many minutes Slow-Mo is playing. That means everything to me. If we know he's still on a minutes cap, it does make him kind of hard to start. Mike Conley looks fine there already. Clippers, do we see any adjustments of the new guys here in all their second game glory together? Eric Gordon, Bones, Mason Plumlee, they all got around-ish, like 15 to 20 minutes in that first one, roughly. It's an approximation. I am genuinely concerned that Mason Plumlee carves out Ivica Zubac, and neither one of those guys ends up with value going forward. And then for Phoenix, nothing really. Josh Okogie's been a really good stream. Nobody new is back for the Suns in this one, so I presume he will continue to be a good stream, with the caveat that the Clippers, they have some pretty decent wings defensively. Reason for a tiny bit of nerves if you're throwing Okogie out there. But he has been pretty good lately, so I would certainly understand it if you wanted to do so. Again, tomorrow, Chris Middleton just got ruled out. Dag nabbit. That's unfortunate. That wasn't even a back-to-back. All right, well, they're just giving him a little bit of longer All-Star break, I guess. Man, what a pisser. Come on, Middleton. Guess they feel they can beat the floundering Bulls without him. Womp womp. Well, Grayson Allen should probably have a decent ball game. You might even see Joe Ingles with a decent one. Guess you got more streaming options there now. All right, now we're officially done. We did the questions pre-show over on the YouTube side, and maybe I'll keep doing that going forward. Seems like people really enjoyed it. To my recorded pod listeners and my live listeners, tomorrow's show will probably be recorded only. We'll do a recap of these 3 Thursday games and a little All-Star Weekend preview. Again, like and subscribe wherever you might be to the podcast, YouTube, recorded, iTunes, Spotify, whatever. Drop a 5-star review if that's something you can do. I don't know. There's all these places we're trying to put the show out now. So whatever applies to you, do that. I'm Dan Besbris. That's also my Twitter handle. That's where I'll see you guys next. Toodaloo! All right, YouTubers, there's like 4 or 5 questions left. So let's just flip those up there real quick. Is Josh Okogie a good stream tonight? I'm a little bit worried going against those Clippers wings. I got offered Cam Johnson and Trey Murphy for Markelle Fultz. I like Cam. I think Cam Johnson for Markelle Fultz is actually relatively fair by itself. I don't even know if I need Trey Murphy in this deal. So for that one, if you need the point guard stuff, you go Fultz. If you need the Cam Johnson scoring and efficiency, you go Cam. Which side would you prefer? Giannis and Mikal Bridges or Luka and Scotty Barnes? Well, this one's easy. If you're punting free throws, Giannis side. If you're not, Luka side. Oh, you are punting free throws. They are both bad foul shooters, but Luka is way not as bad. Comparing those two in free throws right now is serious apples and oranges. Luka is a bad free throw shooter, but you can overcome him. You know, if you had drafted Shea in the 3rd round, he overpowers Luka. Looking at other guys that might have gotten drafted a little bit later that could kind of overpower what Luka does negatively to your free throw. Donovan Mitchell plus Kristaps Porzingis could overwhelm him. Lauri Markkanen plus one of those guys. So, like, you can come back from Luka's free throw shooting this year. You cannot come back from Giannis's free throw shooting. He is a tank, and you cannot win it. With Luka, you can still win it in a given week. Sometimes. So, if you're fully punting free throws, you probably go Giannis and Mikal. And if you're not fully punting free throws, you go the other side. And that were the only two questions that I didn't get before the show. Thanks for getting them all in there early, guys. I got to keep rumbling today. Busy day. I think I might be on with Josh later. I forgot. I got to check. I got to get my head out of my butt. That's another thing I should do. All right, click like on your way out. I know you're all closing the screen. You're going to close the app on your phone, whatever, but just click the like button before you do it. Tomorrow, again, probably recorded only, so maybe I'll talk at you there. And otherwise, we'll see you on the other side of the All-Star break. Later.